In this episode of the Range Minded Podcast, we talk about a preliminary injunction. We talk about a vacated rule. We talk about good old Kenneth Darlington down in Panama for a minute, and a few other things. Plus, do you need a background check to buy ammo? This and much more on this episode of the Range Minded Podcast. Yes, friends, welcome back to the Range Minded Podcast. This is your ever gracious and grateful host, Steve Zimmerman. And eventually we'll get Nick back. I promise. I'm telling you, dude has been crazy busy making holsters and just making business work. That dude is busy. Nonetheless, we still love you guys. We still care about you. We still care about the Second Amendment. And that's why we do this. Because, man, we got to hang on to it because we just may need it. There's a few things I wanted to talk about in this episode. The world has absolutely gone crazy. In a matter of, I guess 2 weeks I've waited 2 weeks to record this episode since the last one. And so much happens in that 2 week frame that I don't know where to start. Maybe I'll start here. I'm looking at my show notes here on the old computer, the little magic box here. I'm sure you guys have seen this, and maybe you haven't. Maybe you guys have been living under a rock and you just don't know what the hell's going on in the world right now. Steven Crowder. If you know, you know, right? YouTuber. He was a comedian. He was a child actor. I'm sure if you guys don't know who Steven Crowder is, pretty good news commentator, researcher, debater. He's pretty solid. Maybe you guys don't like him. Maybe you do. I don't know. But the other day, I don't remember what day it was. He got a hold of the Nashville, the Covenant school shooter. Remember, if you remember, I don't remember when it was. It's been what, a year and a half ago. That transgender student, former student, I guess she was she was like 28 years old, I guess. 27 years old, 23. I guess I should not make speculations. Maybe I should have done some research on this so I knew exactly what I was talking about, right? Anyway, she went in with assault-style rifles. I remember that part in the news. And she killed 6 people, 3 students and 3 adults, administrators, teachers, whatever. Tragic. Awful, right? It did shake Nashville. It shook the community. It obviously shakes the country. Anytime a mass killer does something like this, it sucks. It's painful. It is not good. But what happened, or didn't happen, I should say, is after an investigation, they knew that there was a manifesto. It was never released because it was going to be too devastating and too much for us Phoebes as the general public to understand. Well, Steven Crowder, through some investigative journalism, was able to get 3 pages, photos of 3 pages of the manifesto. And it is, well, I guess you could say it's rough and it's damaging. I'm not going to read through them. It's all over the place. I don't want to give the shooter any more publicity than she got. Needless to say, we learn a lot from just those 3 pages. And it appears this is a spiral-bound notebook. There's far more in this notebook than what Crowder was able to obtain. There's a schedule of events, what she planned on doing. There was a lot of anti-Christian, anti-family, anti-straight stuff in this notebook. And I'm guessing that's why they wanted to bury it. It definitely showed, as any mass murder, it definitely showed that there was some deep psychological issues that have been brewing for quite some time. And finally, that hatred percolated up, and she decided to do something tragic and devastating. Impacted, obviously, the country. It caused once these these 3 photographs of this manifesto percolated up finally after way too long. It caused a tremendous uproar, and it brings back to the surface a bunch of problems about psychological issues and gun ownership, assault rifles, assault machine guns, like all this stuff a lot of the same emotions. I guess let's put it that way. A lot of the same emotions that happened then, it resurfaced. But the major issue is how much the media trounced on Crowder, tried to squash any information getting out. I tried to just Google it. You can't Google it. It just says, hey, Steven Crowder leaked these documents. You can't find pictures of it. Well, you still can. Crowder's got it on his website. There are some places you can still find them. I took some photos of them. I saved them because I knew this stuff was going to disappear. I try to collect this stuff before it vanishes because they do want this memory hold, because I think it goes in part to not only the anti-gun stuff, gun common sense, gun legislation, but it also goes against some of the deeper problems that's going on in the country, especially with psychological issues, and how that plays in with gun ownership. We talked about last time we were on the air. We talked about the main shooter, and he had psychological issues. Obviously, if you're going to carry out a mass murder, you have to have some deep, deep issues. And I'm sure you understand that as well as many people in the gun community, that it's not the gun that causes the issues. It is an inanimate object. It doesn't have some kind of evil spirit that possesses it, that when you touch it, kind of like in Lord of the Rings, when he has the ring and puts it on, it starts to take control of his mind and desires. We all know that guns don't do that. Because if they did, there would be a much bigger problem that would be so self-evident that I think all of us would agree we need to make changes. So just be mindful of it. Because of this Nashville stuff that's percolated back up, there are going to be, I wouldn't say reasserted efforts because it's just nonstop. Just be understanding on how to communicate it. If you can find the manifesto, I would highly suggest reading it. Read her itinerary. Read how she describes these Christian kids in this school. You can almost feel her despair and anger and lust for justice, I guess, is one way to put it. I don't know how else to put it. It's tragic. Excuse me. I've been drinking my ginger beer and oh man, that is terrible radio. For that, I'll drink another drink. Anyway, so that's just kind of the darker side of what I wanted to bring up tonight. It gets a little bit lighter as the show goes on. Let's talk about this real quick. Well, you know what? While we're on kind of a disparaging, interesting, self-loathing, I don't know, loathing, not loathing. It's not bread, right? Loathing. Did you guys see that Kenneth Darlington video? Maybe you don't even know what I'm talking about. So down in Panama, there were some climate protesters. They'd blocked off the highway, causing major congestion, right? And these climate protesters are getting absolutely cray-cray. You see them painting cars with paint, or throwing soup on paintings, or gluing their hands to pavement. You saw one, I think it was in Arizona, where they'd blocked it with a trailer, and these and the reservation cops come in and crash through the trailers and throwing people around. These people are psychotic, right? Another evident truth of mental illness in the country. They're almost treating it like this deranged religion that they feel like they have to sacrifice themselves to in order to get some kind of salvation from climate change or global warming or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, so down here in Panama, not here, down there in Panama, these protesters had put tires and logs and big old rocks across a major highway to cause congestion, which makes perfect sense when you're worried about climate change, that you cause a major traffic jam. So all these trucks and cars and whatever are running on the highway, not doing anything but idling. Makes perfect sense, right? Well, old Kenneth, who has dual citizenship, he's an American citizen who's working in Panama as a professor. Apparently, he's an attorney. I don't know what kind of attorney. I didn't want to go that deep into the investigation on the story, to be quite honest. He gets into an argument. There's no audio. I haven't seen any videos with audio yet. Maybe there's some out there. He gets into a conversation with these protesters. I'm assuming he's telling them, get your shit out of the road so we can all live our lives. Of course, I can only assume that. And it didn't look like it was a terribly heated argument, but who knows? I wasn't there. Again, I have just a little bit of context only from what I saw in the videos, and so there was some other commentaries floating around. So old Kenneth, he decides to pull out his pocket carry Glock, looked like a Glock 26, I'm assuming, I'm not quite sure. Pulls out his Glock, had somewhat of trigger discipline, somewhat. But obviously, it was in the form of intimidation, right? Hey, get this crap out of the road or we're going to have an issue. I didn't look like these Panamanian protesters exhibited any kind of physical threat. This is where I do kind of have issue with this whole story. Old Kenneth, I'm going to keep calling him Old Kenneth. He's getting a lot of praise for this. This is what I don't understand. Anyway, let me finish the story, and then we'll go into the other side of the story here. So, long story short, Kenneth decides to point his gun and shoots two of these protesters. Both of them, at least one of them for sure, ended up dying at the scene. I heard from some other sources that I was trying to study through that the second one passed away as well. Again, from the view that I saw, the one video that's making most of the rounds, it doesn't look like there was any kind of physical threat against Mr. Darlington. From my perspective, it appeared that he just pulled his gat and seen how many bodies he could drop. Not really. That's not a mass shooting. But he shot two of these protesters. So I'm kind of torn on this. This guy is getting a ton of praise inside the gun community. Now, I know this happened outside of the United States. I don't know what Panamanian laws are when it comes to firearm ownership or gun use. I don't know. I don't know. So I can't speak to the legal side of this. But if I can look through it look at it through the lens of a firearms instructor, of what I teach in my concealed carry classes, and listening to what attorneys have to say about use of force, I would highly say that this was not a justified, it's not a clean shoot. But obviously there's more to the story that we're not getting. Again, I need the videos I saw had no audio. I don't know what communication was met between the two. I have no idea. But from what I could see, this is a fed up old man working down in Panama. It looked like he had some kind of a professor at some college down there or something. That's what one of the other sources said. Johnny B. If you guys ever watched Johnny B, I watched his video on this too. Looked like he's some kind of a professor down there. I don't know if he's just a grumpy old white guy. I think it had to do with more that he was sick and tired of these people causing problems around at least his area. What Johnny B was saying is that's a major route to a copper mine. And so the traffic is hideous. Obviously, like I said before, if it is a thoroughfare to a mine, if you guys have ever worked around mines or even seen mines, there's large, heavy trucks that don't get good gas mileage as it is. If they're sitting there idling, they're just polluting. They're not doing anything other than polluting more, causing more problems to global warming than just if they would have driven to the mine. Ironically, because these protesters clogged up the highway, it made it difficult for emergency vehicles to get there. If you haven't seen this video, go ahead and watch it. Develop your own opinion from what you see. Don't just take my word for it. Obviously, like old LeVar Burton used to say, don't take my word for it. Check it out. See what you see, and tell me what you think. From what I saw in the videos, looking at it through the lens of an instructor, that is not a justified shoot. If that took place in the United States, he would be going to jail for homicide, at least, if not murder. Yeah. Use that as a training tool. Use that as an education for yourself to not do that. Don't do that. No matter how frustrating and idiotic some of these protesters might be, it's not worth the rest of your life in prison. Again, don't take my word for it. Watch the video. It's all over Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, YouTube. There's tons of commentary. I'm sure you can find the videos online. It's absolutely, it's chaotic. I'm telling you. I feel like you guys remember The Incredibles when right at the beginning of the movie of The Incredibles, Mr. Incredible is being interviewed. It's the black and white, the black and white footage of him being interviewed like a B-reel. And he's like, hey, I feel like the maid around here. I just left this place and now I got to clean it back up. That's exactly how I feel. I don't do a show for 2 weeks and there's so much news and things happening that I don't know where to start. Anyway, check it out. I'm not going to link any of those videos in the show notes. You'll just have to do your own digging. I am not going to link the Nashville Shooters Manifesto either. I'm not going to link that in any of the show notes. You'll just have to do your own research. But what I am going to put in the show notes is going to be fantastic. Maybe you've heard the news. Maybe you haven't. I'm gonna go good news, bad news, and then end with some good news. Okay. Maybe you guys have heard this. Maybe you have not heard this. But do you remember that whole pistol brace thing? Remember how much consternation there was when the ATF came out with a letter saying, hey, you either got to take off your braces and modify your firearm so you can't put them back on there anymore. Pistol braces, right, for ARs, AKs, that kind of stuff. You got to destroy your firearm, destroy the arm brace, SBR it, or just turn it into the ATF. Do you guys remember this? This was not that long ago. Well, finally, we've had some common sense from some judges, and I think it was the fifth. Oh no, it's a federal court. Let me click on the link here. This I'll link this news story to it, but I'll also link the actual ruling in the show notes. It was a district court judge finally decided to say, hey, this is enough BS. Okay, we've tried this case, or we've seen what other courts have done with this case. The defendants or the plaintiffs, I don't remember what they are, the pro-gun people in this court case, looking at the case, they're going to win the case. So there's no use even pushing this any farther. And so this happened a couple times. Finally, this district court said, okay, that's it. We're absolutely done with this. This is a nationwide injunction. Quit screwing around with the courts. The Supreme Court doesn't want to deal with this. We got to take care of this at the lower courts. Quit dicking around with this. And it's fantastic. I read most of the ruling. It's fairly long. I'm not going to bore you with some of the stuff on it. Let's see. But what I will read, there's one thing I did want to. Oh no, that was the other one. because there's some Vanderstock stuff that we need to get updated on as well. So this district judge, his name is Judge. This is really hard to say. I hope I get it right. Kaczmarek. I'm pretty sure that's how you say it. It's very interesting last name. In his ruling, this judge says, as explained in Garland, the controlling law of this case is that the government defendant's promulgation of the final rule fails the logical outgrowth test and violates the APA, and therefore must be set aside as unlawful under the APA. It follows then that there is no injury that the government defendants or public at large could possibly suffer from if enforcement of the final rule were enjoined. Additionally, the ATF admits a 10-year cost of the rule was over $1 billion. And because of the rule, certain manufacturers that obtain most of their sales from stabilizing braces have risk of closing their doors for good. Okay, fantastic. Like, finally, there's a judge that says, would you guys just stop it? Stop it. So this is a nationwide injunction, meaning if you did not destroy your pistol braces, you're good. Now, who knows how long this is going to stay? I guarantee the ATF is going to have a little tissy fit, and they're gonna file again, and we're gonna have this whole thing. It's gonna end up at the Supreme Court, obviously. How long it takes to get there, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It's just a big mess. But what? Let's just play what if for a second. So we understand that AR-15s. Just come with me for a minute. We understand that AR-15s are not unusual or dangerous. Okay? Well, it's really the term is unusual and dangerous. That's what there's some wordplay that you need to understand the difference of. Okay? The ATF wants to talk about unusual or dangerous, but the reality is the text says unusual and dangerous, which AR-15s are not unusual and they're not inherently dangerous. Okay? Not only are there 20 plus million, which there's so many more than that, AR-15s in public possession, but on top of that, we have AR-15 pistols, right? AR pistols, which there are millions, tens of millions, if not more, in public possession. Many of those with stabilizing braces. They're not unusual, and they're not necessarily inherently dangerous. In fact, the brace makes them safer. I think we can all agree on that, yes? Okay, I'm glad we all agree, because I'll take your silence as 100%. Now, think about this. What could this do to SBRs? Because we know we had, 2% or something, 0.2% of AR pistol owners registered their firearms as SBRs to try and comply with a ridiculous rule that the ATF created. So now they have SBRs. But they're not SBRs. They're pistols. Could this jeopardize the SBR rule in the NFA? Just think about that for a second. Once they understand that a rifle, if it's shorter than 16 inches in the barrel, that's scary, right? But if you add a brace to it, that's fine. That's a pistol. But for some reason, in between pistol and rifle, the only thing different is a stock. That makes it dangerous and unusual. I think we talked about it before. I don't remember where the numbers are, but I've looked up the NFA, how many SBRs are in existence, and I promise you, it's far more than 500,000. They're not unusual. They're in common use. Could this jeopardize the SBR law? That could be fantastic. Anyways, you can read this article from The Truth About Guns, and like I said, I'm going to link the actual ruling if you want some bedtime material to read as well. It is long, but it's also really good. All right, I want to talk about something that's a little bit on the frustrating side, and then we're gonna go back to something that's got a bright side to it. Okay. Let's see. Let's click on this one right here. So this happened on November 2nd, which I know is a week ago as the time of this recording. This is a press release from Congressman, man, I cannot read, Robert Garcia. I'm not sure where Robert Garcia is from. Honestly, I don't even care. Washington, D.C. today, Congressman Robert Garcia, California, should have known. Congressman Robert Garcia of California, Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz of Florida introduced an Ammunition Monetization, Monitoring, and Oversight Act, the AMMO Act. Oh, we see some wonderful faces on the face of this, right? Which would restrict bulk sales of ammunition, require small businesses who sell ammunition to get an FFL, and required all of those businesses to do background checks on bulk ammunition. Basically, what this bill is, like what they're getting at in this thing, is ammunition is dangerous and scary and evil, and we can't let the normal citizens have it. It is not protected under the Second Amendment, is what they're basically saying. I don't know what keep and bear arms, like why that is so hard for them to understand. Do me a favor. We've talked about it before. Look at the Militia Act of 1791? I can't remember for sure. Look up the Militia Act. Way back in our founding documents, it goes into what their understanding of keeping and bearing and what arms are. Okay? Congressman Garcia said this: if we're ever going to really take on gun violence epidemic in this country, we need to regulate ammunition accessibility. This bill aims to protect the American public from the devastating violence that occurs when individuals have access to unlimited amounts of weaponry. Look, I think we should all be able to own tanks, A-10s, whatever. I think if it's good enough for the military, according to the Militia Act, it should be good enough for the public. Now, I think there should be an inhibitor that lies there, and this might make some people unhappy with me. It should be cost. They should be cost prohibitive. But it doesn't mean, hey, we can't have one. I know, that might not make some of you too happy. Let's see what Pocahontas had to say about this. The ammunition monetization and The Ammunition Modernization and Monitoring Oversight Act is a common sense step to restrict ammunition sales, strengthen federal oversight of those sales, and help end the epidemic of gun violence in America. So she wants to create a whole nother bureaucracy so Big Brother can watch everything that we do. Guess what? They're already watching. They already know what everything we bought. They already know. This just gives them a little bit more power to take away and restrict a protected right. Let's see what good old Debbie Wasserman Schultz had to say. No family should endure the pain of losing a loved one to gun violence. I agree. I'm proud to work with Congressman Robert Garcia and Senator Warren to introduce a comprehensive legislation closing the ammunition loophole in our gun safety laws. This bill will save lives. Did you know there was an ammunition loophole? My hell, we learned about the gun show loophole, the both boyfriend loophole, whatever loophole. Now there's an ammunition loophole. Man, all these loopholes. Good gravy. Right now, any person can legally purchase tens of thousands of rounds of ammunition in a single transaction with no questions asked. Thank God. Not even a background check. It defies common sense that individuals can amass a huge amount of munitions with more ease than they can stock up medication for cold or flu season. That's because it's not a protected right. Maybe you should talk to Big Pharma about the problem of getting medication. Good Lord. By limiting the ammunition transaction and requiring dealers to obtain licenses and complete background checks on ammunition sales, the Ammo Act will stop the rapid stockpiling of ammunition and prevent ammunition trafficking, which is crucial for preventing gun violence in America. I have not heard of anything about ammunition trafficking. Brady thanks Congressman Garcia and Senator Warren for introducing this legislation to help address the unlawful diversion of ammunition in our streets across our borders with the supply side approach to prevent gun violence. That was from Mr. Chris Brown of the Brady Bunch. Here's a quote from John Feinblatt from Everytown. As the tragedy in Lewiston underscored, delay equals death when it comes to addressing America's gun violence. We applaud Representative Garcia introducing the life-saving legislation that would make ammo dealers abide by the same rules as gun dealers, which is the very definition of common sense. I would like to introduce a bill that restricts Congress. That would be more common sense. There are over 20,000 gun laws on the books between state and federal. 20,000. You think adding one or two more laws is going to be the deal breaker? Oh, by the way, speaking of common sense, you probably have paid attention to what's going on in Israel with Hamas, right? We all understand that. Awful. Did you see that the Americans, our government, we sent AR-15s to the people over there? Well, maybe we didn't. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. Nonetheless, Israel was handing out firearms to their citizens for their own safety. Almost like it's a right to keep your family safe and to defend yourself from evil. We didn't send I'm having a brain fart. Anyway, I will link this article or not this article, but I'm going to link this press release and the bill of the Ammo Act for you to digest yourself. I promise you, this will not thwart any kind of gun violence because it is not the ammo. It is not the gun. It is the murderer. Anywho, another great thing that's happened, something fantastic. Do you guys remember the whole Vanderstock v. Garland thing? The 80% law that went through the circuit court over and over and over again. Well, we had another tremendous tremendous thing happen today, actually, on the 9th of November. So the Fifth Circuit said, okay, enough with this BS. Enough. Quit trying to regulate something that you're not allowed to regulate, ATF. You do not make laws. That's basically what this vacate says. Let me read you this. So, in the conclusion, this is on page 27. I'm going to link this PDF to you. This starts at page 27. The ATF, in promulgating its final rule, attempted to make on the mantle of Congress to do something with respect to gun control. But it is not the providence of an executive agency to write laws for our nation. That vital duty, for better or worse, lies solely with the legislature. Only Congress can make the deliberate and reasoned decision to enact new or modifying legislation regarding firearms based on the important policy concerns put forth by the ATF and various amici here. But until Congress so acts to expand or alter the language of the Gun Control Act, the ATF must operate within the statutory text existing limits. The final rule impermissibly exceeds those limits, such that the ATF essentially written the law. Such as the ATF has essentially written the law. This it cannot do, especially where criminal liability can and, according to the government's own assertions, will be broadly imposed without any congressional input whatsoever. An agency cannot label conduct lawful one day and felonious the next. Yet, that is exactly what the ATF accomplishes through this final rule. Accordingly, the judgment of the district court is affirmed to the extent holds unlawful the two challenged portions of the final rule, and vacated and remanded it as to the remedy. Basically, what this judge said is, we're done. The ATF or any government agency cannot write law. It is solely up to the Congress to make law. This is a huge deal. Maybe you guys don't care about this stuff. Maybe this is just boring legalese stuff. This is a big deal. This changes the landscape of the Second Amendment. Okay? Think about all the BS the ATF is trying to do. What this judge said was, I'm going to kick you in the nuts, and you're going to go sit back down in the corner and shut up. This is exactly what they said. This is what the judge told the ATF. No more. This is fantastic news. This is like range party news. You need to study and read this whole rule. It is lengthy. I get it. Maybe you guys get bored reading documents, but I think it's important. This whole 80% thing, guns have been manufactured by kitchen gunsmiths in our own homes from the inception of this country. It has always been legal for us, the citizens, to build personal firearms. Not for retail, not for export, but for personal use. It has always been legal. There is history, text, and tradition. And for the ATF or any other imbecile to try and enact this ridiculous rule, just like with the arm brace thing, it is unlawful. This is a huge deal. Maybe you've been listening to what's been going on at the Supreme Court. There's the Rahimi case. I haven't really followed it too close. That too has the effect of changing some big parts of personal freedoms for the positive. we are seeing huge disruptions with the anti-gun crowd. This is a big deal. All these cases are a big deal. Rahimi, you can look at it. The Rahimi guy is actually a dirtbag. He is a piece of human excrement. But it doesn't mean his rights need to be taken away. He's, if you've been following the case, you understand what a pile of crap he is. He's a dirtbag. But the Rahimi case could change how certain things are heard and done as far as the Second Amendment. Do some research on it. Prove me wrong. There is so much there that's key. And all these things, these are great things that are happening. I wouldn't say, hey, go buy an 80% lower and throw an arm brace on it and party it up. Well, I would say that actually. But don't count on those things to stay that way for very long. It's just going to go right back into the big old shredder of the court system again. Because the ATF and the anti-gun crowd will push and push and push until they get their way. The new Speaker of the House, that whole debacle, what's his name, Mike Johnson, he tried to propose some stuff today or yesterday. I don't know enough to really make an intelligent comment on that. But let's just say we had at least 10, air quote, conservative gun owners that didn't support some defunding stuff to support your Second Amendment. The proposal was something that was very pro-gun. But yet they didn't step up to the plate. I can't remember what video I was watching. I think it was The Armed Scholar. Well, he's got a great video on it. My brain is kind of mush, so I can't remember everything that was said because I've been reading legislation and stuff getting ready for this episode. Anyway, that's about all I've got for today. A couple of things I want you to really think about. First of all, I want you to read those two, the vacate and oh my gosh, my brain is totally dead. The vacate and the injunction. Read those, understand those, do some research on them. That's one homework I have for you, one assignment. The other assignment is I want you guys, if you have not yet, I want you guys to think about self-protection. I'm not talking prophylactics. I'm talking what you would do in an emergency situation, whether it be a car accident, whether it be a home invasion, whether it be a carjacking, some kind of a crazy event, mass shooting event or something. I want you guys to start thinking about your reaction to those things. We've talked about Cooper's color codes in the past. I want you to make sure you stay out of the white. War game, what would happen if? Once you've started going through scenarios in your mind, I want you to, there's two, okay? Number two. Number three, I want you guys to think about what your everyday carry is. And we'll talk about this maybe in a different episode. And is it time to change what you carry and how you carry? Is it time to change to be more current with the craziness going on? In no association to that thought process whatsoever, we've had 250,000 illegals cross the border over the last month. Well, a large portion of those have come from the Middle East. Some of them even on the terror watch list. That coincided with what the Palestinians, what Hamas did in Israel, has made me think about that, like how I got to this point of what I'm thinking about is if it's time to change what and how I carry. It's all right to have an extra magazine. It's all right to carry a tourniquet. It's important to get the training necessary. We talk about that ad nauseum. It might be time. Anyways, friends, I appreciate your time on the podcast tonight. Let me know what you think about the things that we talked about. Maybe I'm wrong. I want to hear your opinions. Okay? You can find me or find the Range Minded Podcast. You can find us on Instagram, Range Minded Podcast, all one word. You can find us on Facebook at Range Minded Podcast. We're on Twitter, X, whatever it is, at Range Minded. I even have a YouTube channel. We don't do much with the YouTubes right now. We even have a Substack. Okay? I haven't written a lot of obstacles. I've had a lot of obstacles that's kept me from writing articles lately. Tell me where I'm wrong. Reach out on the socials. Let me know. I appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. Stay safe. Pay attention to the world around you. Stay out of the white. Always be in yellow when they're talking about color codes. Okay? Quick plug about the color codes. Be vigilant. Be strong. And pay attention to the world around you. I want you guys to be good stewards of the Second Amendment. I want you to take somebody shooting. I want you to increase your knowledge base when it comes to the firearms community. You guys rock. Take care. Thanks for spending your time tonight listening to the Range Minded Podcast. Your input is valuable to us. If you liked what you heard in tonight's show, go ahead and like, share, and review on whatever platform you're listening to. If you want to get hold of us, you can email me at rangeminded@gmail.com, or you can find us on our social medias. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all under the Range Minded Podcast. I appreciate your feedback. We love you guys, and remember to take somebody shooting.